Okay. Show me.
Hi there guys, welcome back to the Dutch channel, thank you very much for tuning in. And lo and behold, the Flysky PL18 Paladin radio. A very impressive radio, in my humble opinion of course. Now this video is a part of the series about this here transmitter. I'm not sure in which order I'll release these videos. Maybe the review video of this radio is already online. I'll have a link up there to that video. However, in this video we're going to take a look at one of its receivers. And is it visible? Well, you'll see that receiver in a second. It is the Flysky, so a genuine Flysky receiver, the FTr16S. Which is a significant receiver in my humble opinion. There it is in all its glory, and as you can tell it is positively tiny. Now in the FR-Sky world this is nothing new. We've got our XSR receiver and the XM Plus receiver. However, in the Flysky world, finding a suitable receiver for racing quadcopters or smaller 2-inch quadcopters was well, challenging. So finally Flysky has produced a very small but long range, full range, so diversity receiver with telemetry, and this is obviously an iBus receiver. And it can output ppm as well. I think most people will use iBus instead of ppm, but okay, you've got the option. And it can relay telemetry back to the radio, which is essential for racing quadcopters. Well, essential, well, it's very nice to have, and that's an understatement, I'd say. Okay, so this receiver comes with a little bit of shrink tube to put around the receiver once you've hooked it up. And it comes with a wire harness, a 4-strand or 5, maybe 5, yeah, probably, yeah, 5-strand. Also ppm, which I will not be using. Most people will use Plus, so power, ground, iBus and telemetry. And you also get a manual. Well, manual is too much credit for this leaflet. At least we get told what all the connectors do or what they are for. However, in this video, and it'll be as much of a learning experience for me as it is for you, I'll try to make this receiver work in a freestyle FPV quadcopter, a modern drone if you will. Okay, for me it's a quadcopter. Here is that quadcopter actually. It is a custom built freestyle quadcopter. And I have an entire series about the build and my experiences with this quadcopter. If you are interested, there's a link up here to the playlist. Go check it out. At this moment this quadcopter is almost ready, but it doesn't have a receiver. Yeah, that won't work, obviously. And yeah, I'm new to this receiver, just like you probably are. So this is, in case I forgot to mention it, an AFHDS3 receiver, which is, well, the only kind of receiver that works for the Paladin. So yeah, interesting. I've already ordered more, so I sincerely hope they work well. Let's see how you actually hook this up. Okay, the first thing I did is hook up the wire loom that was supplied with the receiver up to the receiver itself. And yes, I realize that things are tiny. I hope you'll be able to see what I did. I hooked up the plus or the power, obviously, over here at the uppermost contact point. And you need to supply 3.5 to 8.4 volts. I'm not sure why that's the voltage range, but it is. I'll be supplying 5 volts in my quadcopter. The bottommost contact point is the ground. So yeah, that's pretty easy. Then there's the telemetry lead, which I've used the green wire for. And don't let me tell you that's a convention, but it is conventional. And okay, so that's the contact point, the one up from the bottom over here. And yes, this is all in the manual. And the middle contact point is the yellow strand over here, which will be my IBUS signal. And I have left one out. The wire loom came with a white strand as well, which in a lot of cases is used for ppm. So that's the second contact point from the top, which I will not be using. And yeah, okay, so I must say that the contact points, the solder points, are pretty tiny. So you do need a steady hand. You need to be able to solder well. Just keep that in mind. If you can't solder well, just ask a friend to solder this up. Or get yourself a practice board for your soldering. Yeah, soldering is a big part of the hobby. And especially if you are working on FPV drones, you need to be able to solder. Now also, as with, well, especially in quadcopters, in drones, they crash, right? We often crash our quadcopters, and that's part of the flying experience, I guess. And if you never crash, you don't learn anything. So all these solder points you've just made need to be good soldering points, right? So just give this wire on all strands a little bit of a tug. No, don't overdo it. Don't pull on it with all your weight, but just make sure that all soldering jobs have been done well. After that, you curl the wire just like you received it. And why? Well, that will limit the chance of interference between, well, this device and other devices in your quadcopter. So make sure it looks like this, and then you obviously need to solder things up to your quadcopter. So let's see what that looks like. And that, my friends, is when the shit hit the fan. Yeah, so you see the quadcopter here, and it's all buttoned up. It's actually, it has already flown. However, I could not for the life of me get that Flysky receiver to work in this quadcopter. As you can tell, it has a different receiver in it, a long-range receiver. So the problem was that I couldn't get IBUS to work on this F7 flight controller with Betaflight 4.05. Right, so the telemetry, by the way, did work, and I actually got useful data back in the radio, battery voltage and such. So that definitely works. Again, I couldn't get IBUS to work. And you'd say, well, wait a minute, IBUS isn't a new protocol, that should have just worked. Yeah, however, apparently IBUS over AFHDS3, so their new protocol, needs an update of Betaflight. You need either 4.06 or even maybe 4.1. At the time I'm shooting this video, 4.1 is only available as a beta. And these quadcopters, I'm building several of these quadcopters. I want them to all have the same Betaflight version. I hope that makes sense. And the Betaflight version I'm running now is 4.05, and again, IBUS doesn't work on that version. How do I know I need a new Betaflight version? Well, I reached out to Flysky and I used an anonymous, or basically a fake account, to see what their response rate would be, right? And I reached out on Facebook, and they got back to me within a day, and they actually came back to me with an actual answer. Well, the answer was, you need a newer Betaflight version. And in release notes of Betaflight, I can actually see that there is a patch for IBUS over AFHDS3. So it's a legitimate thing. This would never have worked, I guess. Now, that other quadcopter, that project had to move on. So, like you saw, I installed a different receiver in that quadcopter. And here is the Flysky AFHDS3 receiver over here. It's in a different quad. And what I've done is, this actually works. I've already tested this. And in a minute we'll also do a test flight. However, I've set this up as an S-bus receiver now. As with older Flysky systems, you can simply choose whether you want I-bus or S-bus. And one thing of note, if you switch receivers, not only this one but other Flysky receivers, from S-bus to I-bus or I-bus to S-bus, you must power cycle your receiver, at least the receiver, probably also the flight controller. Well, just power your entire quadcopter or airplane or whatever when you switch protocols, and that will probably work. Now this is a ready-to-fly quadcopter you see here. It has an F4 flight controller, and it simply had a wire coming off of it for a receiver, and it's an S-bus wire without telemetry. So in this test I won't be using telemetry. Again, I already had telemetry working with this receiver on the other quadcopter, so I know that works. For this test I'm simply going to be using S-bus, as again this quadcopter is set up for S-bus. And yeah, it's pretty simple. You use the same connector or solder pad as I-bus. It's one solder pad. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is put a shrink tube over this receiver and install it in the quadcopter. Route my antennas, now you'll see that in a second. And I'm going to be test flying it. I will probably also do a part 2 of this video about these receivers, in which I do use it as an I-bus receiver. At this point in time I simply don't have a quadcopter with that Betaflight version. So yeah, maybe again I'll do an update to this video, but for now we're simply gonna, well, test fly this receiver to see if it holds up. Again, it's a new receiver, so let's see if it actually works. Here we go. Okay, I got the Paladin radio with me and a quadcopter with Flysky receiver, and I'm out here on a hockey field. You can't see the hockey field, you'll see that in a second. It is a bit windy, so I hope you'll be able to hear what I'm saying. And this is my maiden flight with the PL18 radio from Flysky. Also my maiden flight with this quadcopter, drone, multi-rotor. And it's also the first video I'm recording with that camera over there, the SJCam SJ9. So wish me luck. Here we go. Maiden flight for the Flysky PL18. Oops. There. And we are off. The first thing you will notice is interference in the video feed, and that's obviously not due to the radio. It is due to the build quality of that quadcopter. Yeah, this is not a review of that quadcopter. And I'm flying behind myself. You will notice the enormous antenna on my head. That's a new antenna from Immersion. From I can't think of the name. Who cares? I'll think of it in a second. But that well will greatly improve my reception. Lumineer. It's an XC, new version, long antenna. Okay, so as you can tell, I am perfectly capable of flying this quadcopter. The first thing I noticed in a hover test with this radio is that the stock sticks, the black sticks that came stock on the radio, were short. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that now, I've switched to the purplish, well, lively color. It's actually a common color for sticks of Flysky radios, right? Yeah, pink. These are a little longer, but still I have pretty big hands. For me it's still a little short. But these are extendable, so I will definitely extend them a little. This is better than what it was. I actually liked the black color of the stock sticks, but those were definitely too short. Those black sticks aren't adjustable in length. Again, these pink, is it pink? I think it's pink. These pink ones are, I am now, by the way, flying dead behind me. So this will definitely impact the reception of this radio. And I do notice that the RSSI in the top right, upper right corner of your screen is partly off screen. I hope you'll be able to see the RSSI. I can see 75% of my RSSI. It starts with a 9, which is good. It's almost perfect, even when I was flying behind myself. And yes, I'm not doing a range test at all. Wouldn't make sense because I'd mostly be testing the range of my FPV system, right? I'm expecting that to give out far sooner than the radio range. Okay, also I'm narrating things here, obviously. And oops, my goggle has mostly gone to black. Yeah, sometimes it does that. I'm gonna have to land. I can barely see where I'm going. Okay, I've landed. Okay. Stop the recording. Yeah, that's okay. Obviously not handy. I am looking for a new goggle and funds for a new goggle. Okay, second flight, I guess. Here we go. Armed. So yeah, this is a review of the radio, right? The weight of the radio is no issue at all. The balance, top to bottom, seems perfect to me. The radio doesn't have a tendency to fall forward or backwards, and yes, I never use a lanyard or a neck strap. However, I think the balance of this radio is hundreds of times better than the Horus, the FR Sky Horus radio I generally fly. That's my daily, or was my daily radio. And the balance of that radio is awful. The balance of this Flysky radio seems a lot better. So if you do fly with a neck strap, I think you'll like this radio better in that sense at least. So the spring tension of the gimbals is light, and I like that. However, yeah, this is not a review of the radio. Well, partly it is, I guess. The radio comes with 2 sets of extra springs. One set that's even lighter or longer, basically. Longer than the stock ones, and one set that's shorter, so you can adjust this radio to your heart's content. You can also do micro adjustments, so I could stiffen the ones I have in here now up a little if I'd want to. Yeah, this is my maiden flight with the radio, right? The first thing I'll do is extend the sticks a little. That'll be the first order of business. The radio also comes with thicker grips. Pretty luxurious actually, right? 2 sets of extra springs and a set of extra rubber grips at the bottom, at the back of the radio. I'm flying the radio with the stock grips, and so far I think it's nice and thin, this radio. I like that. But I'll give the optional thicker grips a try as well. Again, I have pretty long, big hands, so maybe those secondary grips, yeah, you won't see the grips right now probably. The grips that are stock are pretty flat. The alternate grips that come with the radio are more rounded. So yeah, might be more comfortable. The quadcopter flies pretty good, apart from that horrendous interference. I'm not sure what it'll look like to you in the FPV feed, but this is, yeah. Okay, but well, this is not a review of this quadcopter. Weird, actually. The electronics in this quadcopter are of good quality, or the brands are reputable. So they've done something completely wrong in the build of this drone. This is an RTF drone. This interference, there's no need for this interference with the components used in this quadcopter. Shame. But it's flyable. Low battery, okay, that was well, 2 flights, I guess. Yeah, the thing with narrating flights like this is that the flights themselves are never interesting. Because I'm paying attention to what I'm saying, you know. Okay. Shame, the quadcopter does fly well. Okay, let me wrap things up for you to give you my, well, post-flight analysis. Hold on. Okay, my experience with the Paladin radio with their new FTr16S receiver. Is that the actual name? I think it is. Pretty good. This wasn't a full-on flight, as you could tell, but the latency, I couldn't. Actually, I felt like the latency was lower than what I'm used to. And that's something the Flysky radio systems are known for, right? Low latency. So that's one thing I did notice. Even though this quadcopter is new to me, I have flown hundreds of quadcopters. The latency, yeah, felt low. And well, yeah, reception, this wasn't a long range flight obviously, but the RSSI was constantly high even when I was flying over there, so really behind me, and that should have had an effect on my reception. It didn't, so that speaks for this system. I have no idea what the output level of this transmitter is. I'm expecting them to abide by the law, but well, seems I will do more flights with this radio obviously, and this is not really a review of the radio, but this combination, I am very glad to have tried that receiver, and I have more on the way. So yeah, I'll be using these receivers in more quadcopters. And yes, I will be doing an update on the iBus plus telemetry setup for these receivers. And that's basically it. If you are left with questions, hit me up a comment down below. I'll be happy to answer you. And maybe by the time you are commenting, I know more of this combination. So don't hesitate. Catch you on the next video. Bye bye.